What's happening, Hexico? We are back. It is Wednesday, November 6th. That is the day after November 5th, I'm being told. And that is correct. Welcome to the show. Glad to be here. Glad we don't have atomic plants today. We don't have any atomic plants. What we have is, welcome back to the show, Nuclear Herbs. Oh, that was a fast one. Good
to see you. Good to see everybody. So
you're fired. Who's fired? Who's fired? Nuclear Herbs. Who's fired?
Oh yeah, he's out of here. Can't wait for it.
Is that the Honorable Gary Gensler that's getting you suspect that Trump's holding the paper that's passing to him and alluding to the end of that.
The pretty big applause line with what was it, the Bitcoin conference, where he said he would fire Gensler on day one. So I think everybody's waiting for him to pull through on that one.
Can we have a referendum or something on that? Is there like a public vote that can happen for people outside of like in that area of government? Is that a thing?
I don't even know. I think that the terms, I think they just serve out their term. I don't know what anybody can do to get them out. The SEC is supposedly, an independent agency and with 5-year terms. I mean, but who was the prior SEC commissioner that resigned when Biden got elected? He resigned 2 weeks after the election results came out or something like that. So we'll see. There's always hope that Gary just does the right thing and gets the hell out on his own. But either way, he won't be chair January 20th. That's for sure.
Wow. Exciting time. Yeah. I mean, that's, I was telling you in the green room, when I first created the stream, I didn't know who was going to get elected. I thought definitely the polls and stuff were leaning towards Trump victory. And of course, he said all kinds of, well, I'll bring it up in a minute too, all kinds of positive things for crypto and consensus, good sentiment towards the community and the conferences you mentioned too, and all that stuff too. Is this the unleashing? Are we getting unleashing? How much do you think the election matters with the crypto policy? And then we'll dovetail that into Richard's case and stuff too. But what are you feeling right now when you woke up or last night you saw that the GOP was going to come back on all three of the branches, I guess you'd say.
I'm as hopeful as I've probably ever been for crypto. I don't think that it's any secret, and I think everybody who ran for office this time around knows, that they were on, what is it, standwithcrypto.com. I think everybody, they were queried by people asking them what their position is. I don't think there's, I don't think there's anybody that thinks that this is not a significant voting block from here forward. So if you want to, I think you risk alienating a whole bunch of people in your constituents, if you don't recognize the fact that, we're a real thing now. So maybe we weren't, maybe it was just FTX and some other big players, big money people 4 years ago. But now it's just, FTX had one, Sam Bankman-Fried had one vote. We had 50 million this time or whatever. So that's a pretty big number. It's hard to ignore.
Make the United States the world's cryptocurrency capital. Fire SEC Chair Gary Gensler. Establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Prevent the U.S. from selling its Bitcoin holdings. Halt further U.S. government deployment of CBDC. Propose a comprehensive cryptocurrency policy. Cease hostilities against crypto within an hour of taking office. In the U.S. government's unlawful crackdown on the crypto industry, recommend using cryptocurrency to address U.S. debt issues, reduce the sentence of Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht. Which of these do you think strike you as going to happen?
Let's say things that can happen pretty quickly. Gary's gone. That's let's go down the list. The strategic Bitcoin reserve sounds like pretty good idea. That could happen relatively quickly if you have an all red Congress. Prevent the U.S. from selling its Bitcoin holdings. That's relatively easy to do. Just don't do it, right? Halt further U.S. government development of USDC or CBDC rather can be implemented relatively quickly just by banning or just not allowing your executive departments to handle that. I really want to see a comprehensive cryptocurrency policy proposed by Congress, and it's really the only way we have to go forward. this is just such a mess with the current SEC's regulation by enforcement nonsense. It's got to happen, and I think that there was pretty much a loud and clear message that it's got to happen. So I would expect that to be not day one type stuff, but within the first 90 to 120 days. I would be really surprised if we didn't start seeing legislation proposed to deal with that. I love the cease hostilities against cryptocurrency
within an hour.
Yeah, the choke point 2 goes away right away. We knock all this off. I'm going to be a happy guy. Yeah. The unlawful crackdown, I mean, that's the same thing, right? Those two are basically reworded the same thing. I don't know how you use crypto to address U.S. debt issues. I think the far more important concern there would be reducing the amount of debt we keep adding to this country. I'm not sure that paying it off is the using or hoping that number go up to pay off some debt is the right answer. I think stop spending is the right answer, and then we'll see what happens there as the GDP rises and the amount of the amount we're adding to the deficit falls dramatically. That's the way to go. But yeah, free Ross. Do it right away. There's no reason to stop. No, I mean, do it. Get him out. He should be out by July. He should be out by January 20th evening.
We'll get to just in the comments as well. Hex Cheetah has got a comment on SEC case. We'll get to in just a minute, but I wanted to cover real quick. Let's see the other piece. Oh, by the way, Tether minted 2 billion USDT. FYI out there. Tether printer go burr. Tether printer go burr. We've seen some big amounts getting minted from time to time. It's always like, it always feels bullish. Again, time will tell. But boy, this crypto thing, nuclear herbs, crypto thing seems to have staying power. You think?
Yeah. What's your take on the that minting? What do you get out of that?
I mean, it's kind of like, okay, it's minted. Where the money in the system, where's it going to go to? Like how much does it matter to crypto versus how much does it matter to a lot of stuff that we care about, for example, Hex and PulseChain. I don't know. I feel like sometimes it happens. The effects may not be felt till later on and stuff too. I think there's different opinions around it, but it always feels bullish when it happens, but you don't always feel that effect of like, oh wow, they just, there's $2 billion going to go into, Hex now. Like it doesn't always feel like that, or like any other protocol as well. It's more of like, okay, wow, there's some money floating around. Like, let's see what happens to it. Hopefully it's maybe they're buying stuff with it rather than doing things that, aren't going to have much effect or just sitting on it for a while. So not being a trader, I'm not, I don't know. I kind of have the reserve mindset in the first place anyways, but chat, let us know if you see some huge moves being made by, like I just said, it happened a couple hours ago, at least this one, Somi broke it here on Twitter. Let me know if you see some things trending up.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see what the downstream effect of that is, and what was the driving force behind making that decision and minting it. If there was some specific catalyst for that, I'd be curious.
Yeah, there's some few. I mean, I've also searched for. If you look, let's see. So Well Alert. Let's see if I can search. I'll just search from Well Alert. I used to have like the different search terms where I could more accurately. Let's see, minted. Let's just do this and see. So November 3rd, $50 million USDC, 50 million USDC on the 31st, 50 million. There's been quite a few 50 millions. And then, I
guess those add up too, don't they?
These numbers, how fathomable are they for anyone who's not an accountant or dealing with just moving tons of money around all the time, which I'm sure is everyone all day long. But $1 trillion, like what does that even mean? 2 billion USDT. That is a very, very large number. I'll say that. So 3 hours. So this is November 6th, November 3rd, every other day, every couple days or so. at least, oh, there's $1 billion right there.
Oh, look
So,
at that. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at this, it makes you feel bullish, but I'm not holding my breath. We definitely seen some, lots of money come back and forth on PulseChain and stuff too, and there have been some fireworks and not so many as well. But wow, 1.3 million views for the $1 billion too. So I certainly hope so. I'm not. Yeah, we'll see. I don't want to. I want to reserve my enthusiasm until maybe at least a few more days or a few more weeks, or some major moves start happening. You mentioned the Operation Chuckle 2.0. Yeah, the SEC chair, the state of negative sentiment from the government for crypto that who knows could be holding a lot of the momentum back, and people are kind of waiting around to see that. In addition to in our, locally in our own ecosystem, what's going on?
Kind of just sucks that we gotta wait the 2.5 months in order to get some of that shit started, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I'm gonna hit on the next piece of perhaps. I mean, who knows? It's AI. I did feed them. I'll put a link to the transcript here as well. People can read it. It's something like 70 pages or so. I read the Mission of Dismissal, and it was pretty long, but it was amazing as well.
Yeah, it's worth your time. It's really only 35 pages because it's double spaced, so like it's not that bad. Okay. And it's actually kind of a good read. I mean, it certainly wasn't boring. So
before we get into the paper real quick, Hexcheetah, Arab, can you confirm how many different arguments the SEC has in total that we're looking to dismiss? It looks like just the fraud one is just for Pulse.
Not quite sure exactly what you mean by that, but how many arguments do they have in total? Well, you kind of have to take a look at you have to establish personal jurisdiction for each of the Hex, Pulse, PulseX, right? You do. So and then I don't remember if fraud was specifically limited to Pulse, but it seemed to be that it was only related to the sacrifice. So I don't know if there was, I don't remember off the top of my head if they were talking about the PulseX sacrifice as well, with respect to any potential fraud claim. It certainly wasn't Hex. But I think, I don't remember if there was an allegation regarding the PulseX sacrifice money. I know they talked a lot about the timetable, whether or not the sacrifice period was quote unquote unofficially extended into April and they did that in order to try to get statements that Richard made in the March 22 the Hex conference. They wanted that in order to show they could relate some of his statements to investor activity prior to the offering period closing. And it's pretty, you'll see it in the transcript somewhere where the court basically says, Hex, there's nothing like that with respect to Hex because we had the adoption amplifier end in 2020. The statements that they were talking about were in 2022. It didn't affect, you can't relate that all the way back to investor activity. You obviously can't influence something 2 years before you made the statement. So there's a pretty decent amount of discussion on that. I don't really know. I don't really want to. I don't know that I could summarize it any better than the transcript does. But again, whether or not you can move forward on a fraud claim, and the judge talks about this in the transcript, whether or not you can move forward on a fraud claim also depends on whether or not you have jurisdiction, not only over Richard, but over the transaction itself. Like did they allege a domestic securities transaction? And the SEC really struggled with that answer. So much so that she asked it, I don't know, 3 times, maybe 4 times in different ways, trying to get at that. I hope that answered you. I'm not sure. But anyway, lots of things have to get decided, and it has to be broken down into component parts.
Let us know, Hexcheetah, if they answered it, or you have any follow-ups. We'll take a few questions as we can.
Yeah, sure.
Hi. Shout out to Wellness,
nice work.
Jay.
Nice work today, Ashley.
Yeah, that previously in the day, they're also reading the entire transcript. So if you, I think that's what when I tuned in, they were going through it, and each I think Will, Zenith, and SJ going through each one. So if you want to hear it like it would sound as a play, I'm not sure if they did different sound effects on the funny parts or not, but yeah, it's been covered earlier today that in entirety from what I understand, or at least
Yeah, I've just seen clips of it so far, but I got to go watch the whole thing because it looked very well done. So we'll see.
Somebody asked AI to read the transcript and estimate the likelihood of a dismissal, and I want to get your take on this as well. So, based on the hearing transcript provided, the judge appears to be skeptical of the SEC's arguments on both personal jurisdiction and the fraud claim. The judge questioned the relevance of the post-offering activities to establish jurisdiction, challenged the adequacy of the SEC's fraud allegations, and showed reluctance in accepting the SEC's basis for personal jurisdiction over defendants' actions, which the bull blocking this seemed to be directed globally rather than specifically, I want to guess.
Yeah, it's going to be something like that. Basically, that's the idea.
Given these observations, all right, buckle up, everyone. Given these observations, there's a strong chance of dismissal. I'd estimate the likelihood of dismissal around 65 to 75% based on the judge's critical stance on the SEC's difficulty in substantiating claims. Nuclear herbs. Does that sound in the ballpark?
That sounds awesome. I don't know. Like I've been wrong in so many different cases where I thought, for sure this is going to work this way and a judge is going to come out this way and whatever. So I don't want to do that to this community. I don't want to put out my, any personal feelings or estimates or anything like that, because I don't want people to get their hopes up or anything. I'm just going to say this, that I'm not sure that hearing could have gone a whole lot better for Richard's team. There's not very much that the SEC was able to offer with respect to the judge's questions that she seemed to need answers to, and they were somewhat on the evasive side. Early on in the transcript, even if you don't read the whole thing, you fall asleep 5 pages in, you can see where the SEC, I think it was Ben Curvilla, there is one of their attorneys. The judge is asking him a question about about the alter ego argument, whether or not they're abandoning it, and he basically said something like, "Well, I'm not really sure that's relevant," or whatever, and I which just took me aback, because if a judge asks you something, it's relevant. Period. Like, she's not there to talk about irrelevant shit. Like, that's her job, is to find out answers to her questions, and you better be giving them to her, not telling her what you think she needs to know and not. So not a good way to start a hearing, that's for sure. But I thought when she asked Richard's team for answers, Richard's team gave them answers. When she asked the SEC for answers, sometimes she had to go back and ask the thing more than once, because the SEC did not give her the direct answer that she was looking for. And that's, if you're sitting there with a notepad and scoring 1 point for one team and 1 point for the other team, I'm going to say that there were plenty more points scored by Richard's team than by the SEC. It's just because, and that's a nature of, they don't really have the goods on this. If they had it, they'd be more confident. They'd be able to answer the questions, but they don't. They, as I've said a million times, when you draft a shitty complaint, sometimes you're stuck with it. And I think that's the problem that they have here, is that they didn't do their homework from the start, and now it's going to come back to bite them.
Just going over to Hex Sheeta said he talked about on Twitter, and there's a thread here too. You can take a look at it real quick to follow up on his question as well. The judge already decided to throw out the claims against Hex, specifically the security claim. In this moment, the transcript where the SEC concede that their main jurisdiction evidence, March conference, can only be applied to PulseChain and PulseX offerings. Let's start there.
Yeah, that's correct. And because, again, the only offering period, if you will, I mean, we're still I'm talking as if they're securities, and therefore there's an offering period. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that. In fact, I don't agree with that. Neither does Richard's team. But for the purposes of discussing it as if we were talking about a actual securities claim, and which we kind of have to do at the motion to dismiss stage, we haven't gotten to Howie yet. Like that's not going to happen until later, if it happens at all. But for right now, like we're just going to have to play the game and assume that there is a there's an offering period for securities. The hex whatever period that was ended way before anything that the SEC could prove where Richard was talking about hex. So with respect to the April 6th date, that was the date, and they got this came out of the Kyle Barr declaration, where there was a kind of an offhand comment. I don't even think it was definitive. I think it was more of an offhand comment the way I read it, that the thing was unofficially extended to April 6th, and they did that in order to get the March statements that he made at the March whatever Maddie's conference in order to use them against them. So this is kind of, I hate to say it, but this is kind of like the no good deed goes unpunished line, right? Where, if Richard had the sacrifice for Pulse open for X amount of days and then put up a thing on his webpage and said, the sacrifice is over, don't send any more money. And I think that was pretty clear. There's no question about it. You can see it from the Wayback Machine. It's there. And then yet people kept sending more and more money. Did the same thing with PulseX, right? Even though the period was over and everybody knew it was over, people kept sending money and money there. You can't stop it. That's the nature of blockchain, right? If you have an address, you can send something to it anytime you want. I can send something today if I wanted to, right? But and you can't really blame Richard for the fact that people are sending money in well after the deadline. But I think the hook there was, Richard did, because he's a good guy, honored some of those sacrifice points and airdrop things to people. If he hadn't done so, I don't think we have this problem. But again, I mean, he was doing what he thought was right, and and it's being used against him, which I think is just tragic, to be honest with you. It's horrible.
Yeah. Also, judges by the whole unofficial extension of sacrifice PulseX. These can go around. Hex Miami and Pulse conferences with respect to Hex were clearly after the offerings were closed and after the offerings for Pulse and PulseX closed. Okay. Yeah,
there was no question about it. I thought there was only one exhibit in that whole hearing, and it was the Richard's team had brought in a big old whiteboard with a timeline printed out onto it, showing very clearly that the SEC was trying to jumble the timeline, and they handed it to the judge, and she could just read the actual timeline. So when they talked about it, they're like, "Hey, this happened on this date. You can't attribute this to a year in the past or 6 months in the past or whatever." So I thought that was it was very smart on their part to lay it out in exactly that way. So there was no question as to and there was no pushback from the SEC on the timeline that that Richard's team presented, because it's really hard to argue with the calendar.
Hard to argue the calendar. That's I've heard that stated before. That is substantive. Substantive. Yes. Fraud claim, as far as I understand, it's just PulseChain, not PulseX, not Hex or PulseX. Are any significant claims that we're trying to get dismissed and highlighted? The fraud claim only relates to the PulseChain project.
Oh, if the SEC admitted that, I don't remember that. But if the SEC did actually make that admission, I don't remember it. But if that's the case, that's probably real good. So
I'm not sure who is talking on this one. I'd like to turn with that to context the fraud claim as a counsel for SEC that's admitted.
Yeah, that could be either Richard's team or the judge. I'm going to guess
Richard's team.
That's Richard's team, because it's when they say it's very thinly alleged and it's very narrow, that sounds to me like Richard's team. So I'm going to say that, because I don't think the judge wouldn't have editorialized like that in court.
Gotcha. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Hex Cheetah. That's good to
very cool.
Look at.
Good. I'm just glad people are so interested in this case. Like, it's really Hex Monkey. Yeah, good to see you there too, by the way. Love seeing you, Hank. yeah, we really represented well. We really did, and it was. I can't tell you how much that meant. Clearly, Richard's lawyers liked it. They were happy to have that packed courtroom. As soon as the hearing ended, they all came over and talked to us, in the courtroom, and we just sat and bullshitted for a little bit about what went down. And they one of his attorneys, I can't remember which one, handed me the exhibit, so because I didn't need it anymore. So I gave it to SJ to give away at the PulseChain tour event.
Ooh, what a prize!
Yeah, it was great. We all signed it on the back of it. A lot of us who were there, or hopefully everybody who was there, we all signed the back of it. So that was a unique little gift that they got to give away, which is cool as hell.
Got a question from Beyond All. What point got the most exchange between RH attorneys and the judge? Is there any part the judge felt unconvinced from the RH attorneys?
Yeah, I don't really believe that at any time the judge had questions about whether or not she was getting true and accurate statements from Richard's team. I don't think that didn't strike me at all, that ever happened. I think when you answer a question directly posed to you and you give the judge a direct answer and you're confident in your position, which, they've been confident in their position this entire time. They haven't changed. They haven't backed off one iota from the January letter saying we're going to file a motion to dismiss on these bases, to the motion to dismiss, to the the reply brief that they filed, to this hearing. They haven't backed off tiny bit. Why? Because they're right. And now it's just a matter of whether or not being right is enough, and we'll see. But I just really thought it was a masterclass in litigation. The two guys that argued were Mr. Liftick, and if you've seen him before, and he testified in front of Congress on at a crypto hearing, a month and a half ago, something along those lines. If you're important enough to do that, you're probably very well respected in the community. And then I don't know if you know this, dude, but Quinn Emanuel is ranked the most. If you Google most feared law firm in the United States, it'll bring up Quinn Emanuel. They seem to win that on a regular basis. And Then David Kirk from Kirk and Ingram did a really, really nice job. And he was, so I just thought that I don't think there was any question that the judge was getting the answers that she wanted / expected from Richard's team.
Got one from Dipcatcher here. How does changing administration impact ongoing cases?
Yeah, that's a tough call, man. Okay, so there are potential ways, but there's no guaranteed ways. It's obviously not going to affect the judge's decision. She's going to do what she's going to do because it's her job, and it's going to come out before the new administration is sworn in. And really, once a case gets filed in court, it's going to proceed along the track because the courts don't care. Once you file something, it's going to stay that way until one of the parties moves, either wins or the plaintiff moves to dismiss it. But I'll say this, once Gary is gone and hopefully Hester's in, that would be a really good, replacement for Gary. I would think that there was a decent enough chance that they would take a look and say, is this the direction that we want to continue to go? And even if this is the direction we want to continue to go, is it worth our time and resources to spend on these type of, on these particular defendants? And maybe they go through all the cases that they're going through and say, this one, there's arguably enough basis for us to continue on and protect, in the investor protection realm. And then other ones, maybe they just say, this doesn't really seem like it's going to advance our stated mission at the SEC. And, they can file what's called a Rule 41 anytime and just walk away from it. It's just they just move to dismiss it themselves. So I'm kind of hopeful that there is kind of some sort of, reevaluation of these type of cases in the future, and say, were any investors really harmed out of this? Is it our job to go, step on the toes of European regulators and go after this guy? I think there's a lot of questions that have to be answered, because right now, we don't have a clear direction out of the SEC, and they're just kind of doing whatever comes up. And I don't really think it's advancing the SEC's mission in any way.
Do you think so with the new administration too? I mean, it sounds like Elon may play a role of some sort in it as well. A lot of people in tech, you've seen them talk about support or otherwise. I mean, if you watch All In podcast, you've heard Chamath and David Sachs, everyone talk about it, as well as the case for business, the case for getting I don't know, imagine some of them are fans of crypto as well, and just getting the whole economy and all these important things that have to do with money, have to do with capitalism, have to do with growth and stuff like that. Do you think that's a big part? Do you think now versus even 2016 or otherwise, that the government is surrounded by people, especially at the head, who want to deregulate and make things happen that are good for the economy and all that stuff too? Do you feel like it feels a little bit different now than it has before?
It does.
Way?
Yeah, it does. I kind of look at Elon's potential role the way that I'm kind of envisioning it, or the way that I guess I'm hopeful that it's going to come out, is if you look at the federal government as a Dodge Ram 1500 that is loaded to the.
You mean Cybertruck? You mean Cybertruck?
No, whatever. Yeah, any pickup truck that's loaded well beyond its hauling capacity and towing a trailer that is 4 times the weight that it's rated for, but it's still able to get some momentum and move down the road slowly and completely inefficiently. So instead of being able to do its job the way it's supposed to, it is burdened by all of that crap. And I think Elon's job, if I hope, is to go unload that and get it back to working within the normal manufacturer's parameters. And if he can get, unload all of the useless crap and useless jobs and useless, redundancies and every other damn thing that we have in this government, that's slowing us down and making us work inefficiently. Maybe yeah, I mean, let's just get it, start ripping away some layers like he did at Twitter, and figure out what you actually need to run this thing and what you don't. And I bet you, we're going to wind up, if he's allowed to do his job, I think we'll wind up with a considerably smaller, far more efficient government. And with any luck, we'll find out there are departments in there are probably still working on Y2K, and they've just been getting paid for the last 24 years to work on that.
What do we tell them about AI? They're going to be whoa.
Yeah. So I hope he does that. Hey, Paul.
I hope whoever's doing things in the government does a great job. I think hopefully the team assembled, and we'll get to see in the coming when it's time, the cabinet and all that stuff too.
I thought it was pretty smart of Trump not to take the transition money, right? And so because he'd be beholden to certain rules and regulations that if he financed the transition team himself, he can do whatever the hell he wants to. And I thought that was a lesson that he obviously learned last time around, where he had to staff things with people he didn't necessarily want to. He's talked about that before. If this time I think we're going to see an entirely different administration, and it's going to half of the anchors on TV are going to be on Xanax during their shows, but I'm fine with that. Let's go. Nothing changes until there has to be a catalyst for change, and I think that was I think we'll see some changes that never would have happened otherwise if he just moved into a second term the first time. In 2020, if he moved into a second term, I think he'd be saddled with a lot of shit that he's not burdened with this time.
Just wanted to, where are we at? Oh yeah, so Paul was talking about his take on the money printer go burr at the Tether treasury. It's like if the Fed came out and said we printed $4 trillion for markets and loans, bullish. I mean, that's, again,
Cool.
hold my breath a little bit. I'm not trying to be too excited, but $2 billion is a lot of money. $1 billion a few days ago as well. Money printer at the Tether treasury and USD treasury, I think, as well, has been going burr. But yeah, I'm not here to predict global markets or the crypto economy.
Yeah, I understand. I understand very little about macro finance and whatever. But thanks, Paul. I mean, because I know he does. So I'm
hope so, Paul. Yeah, Operation Choke Point is over. Certainly hope so.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Damn right. About time too.
J Money says Trump winning the election changed the game. If he fires Gary on day one, the game over, and we should go to the moon. Certainly hope so.
Yeah, let's. We're all assuming that since we're in Richard's community and we have a mindset about crypto. We are in a community with a bunch of, for the most part, good actors, and certainly a good leader in Richard. We have to remember that there's a lot of bad actors out there. And hopefully the attention gets turned to the bad actors, the rug pullers, the scammers, and not on people, who are trying to do good in this world. I guess that's my hope.
It's about time people fighting for good are get good, get
are rewarded. Yeah. Don't try to kill the people that are trying to do good. I think, you're not helping yourself. You're not helping anybody.
I love this meme so much. Get in, loser. We're going to Mars.
I love it.
We got Elon. We got President of Argentina, Richard and Trump, and that Burberry airplane. Cannot forget Burberry. Or sorry, LV airplane.
Louis Vuitton airplane. Yeah. Go. Yeah. Let's all go. Top in.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's go to Mars. Let's see what else we got. Even if the case isn't dismissed outright, the hearing made me confident that even if the fraud case proceeds, it will eventually lose. Hot take. Not so hot take, I guess.
Yeah,
good take. What do you think?
I think Hex Monkey's spot on there. There's a whole lot of things that can happen. Again, don't and I talked about this a little bit I don't know if I was on stream at the time or if I was just talking to people at the PulseChain tour, but a motion to dismiss it's just like a fat kid on an obstacle course, right? He's got to make it over the first hurdle, but the first hurdle really isn't that hard to clear because it's almost like the judge has to give them the benefit of the doubt in a motion to dismiss. If no matter how shitty you've laid things out, if there's any way that it can reasonably be construed in their favor, that she's got to give it to them, and that's just the law. That's nothing, it's not like she even wants to. It's just the way the law is written. So, but yeah, I don't see the SEC getting to finish the obstacle course, no matter if they get over the first hurdle or not. And I think that they have significant issues with getting over the first hurdle with respect to some of the claims. If you can't point to a single domestic securities transaction, what the hell are we even doing here, right? So. I like your optimism, Hex Monkey. It was good to see you there.
We got Hope Trope and his Doge. If they really do call it the Department of Government Efficiency, that's going to be fantastic too.
Yeah. Sorry, man. Sorry. I'm still fighting off some shit I got when I was there. 10 hours in a fucking tube doesn't really help you, flying across the country back and forth.
Since Elon slash government is as much as melee or more, when a government spends their money, that's our money and taken out of the economy in our pockets.
That's exactly it right there, right? We just basically, they figured out a long time ago that if you grow government departments, then, and somebody comes along and says we need to make government more efficient, that's a buzzword for they're going to cut my freaking job and I'm not going to have a job anymore. So I got to vote the other side that's going to keep my job. And then, as that number go up, if you have a department that, starts off at 5,000 people and gets to 25,000 people in 20 years, that's, what is the richest counties in the country or right outside DC? There's a reason for that, It's just time to reverse that trend.
Question from Fox Monitor. Partial dismissal is very high. Full, I would be shocked. What would a partial dismissal look like? How would it be? Could the judge come back and say, oh, this one's valid, but all the rest of them we're going to throw out? Like, how would that work?
Yeah, that's kind of how it works. For example, like I'm really been struggling to figure out like what the basis is to allow some of the hex related claims to move forward. I'm not really entirely sure that the SEC did anywhere near enough to answer her questions related to hex and what Richard did in an offering period or whatever type of disclosures or omissions, whatever. That I don't really see a solid basis for letting that claim move forward. I mean, I could be surprised. I often am, but like, if I had to, I guess I'm going to be surprised if I read her decision and there's a basis for the claims against hex to move forward. I can't figure it out. I can see a potential basis just to allow the fat kid to get over the first hurdle with respect to the, some claims made during the, if you will, I hate calling it the offering period because it's not, but like during the offering period, with respect to Pulse and PulseX, if you take it at face value that the offering period, again, I hate saying it, is extended through April, and he made some of those statements in March. So, I think it's completely reasonable to see a split the baby type ruling, where some claims get dismissed and some, may, even if they're on life support, they get to live another day.
I just pulled up, I was scrolling down here, and I came across, every time I see alter ego, I just want to think, is that still a thing? Is it still going on, like the alter ego thing? Of course, there's only clarify one thing, which will be shortened arguments addressing SEC. You have abandoned, I take it, any alter ego theory that you had set forth in the original complaint, that's gone. And they say, Your Honor, that's not part of this motion, not relevant to this motion. Have you abandoned the claims or not? Like, they don't sound friendly. It sounds like, do you have your facts correct or not?
Yeah, well, she's trying to clean up the case too, right? I mean, when you file a complaint and you put, 5-10 things in it, motions to dismiss are used to essentially trim branches off that tree, if the complaint's a tree, in order to clean things up and get them more, only bring the important things that need to be decided, towards trial. I mean, a judge doesn't need to do any more work on stupid things. The parties don't need to spend money defending stupid things. So, Curavilla, for what he had, I think he at one point agreed, maybe it's on the next page from this, but I think he did agree initially that they were going to walk away from those, the alter ego type claims. And then I think, if you read later on, he kind of backs off of that a little bit, but I don't think the judge is impressed with their, we're going to sue blockchain. We're going to sue software. I don't think she's impressed with that whole idea.
Well, it says here too that the court, but you've named the blockchains themselves as defendants. What's the basis for doing that? And are you continuing to do that and maintain their defendants? And then previous to that, respect to alter ego, facts, we had some facts to suggest that Mr. Hart has control over these entities, controlling the websites, etc. Are they saying that Richard has control over the blockchains? And if so, could that just be like validators look at decentralization? Like, is that what's
Yeah,
going on in that?
I'm not entirely sure where the SEC was going with that. I mean, clearly he has no control over Hex, right? Hex is code, immutable on blockchain, can't do anything with it. Couldn't shut it off if he wanted to, couldn't change it if he wanted to. I don't think there's any question about that. You know, let's assume that he has the ability to update Pulse and and add features or whatever, or to Pulse and PulseX. I guess theoretically, we don't really know like who's doing it. It could be, could be a group, could be him, could be. He's already said he's not a dev, so we can reasonably assume that he's not writing code. He didn't write the code. He's not writing code. So who really knows at this point who's doing what? And I think the SEC is just trying to survive long enough to get into discovery and find out, find out who's doing what. And this is really not the proper way to do it, if you will. Like it's not proper to use the courts as a way of doing your investigations.
It just seems like a super uphill, hard case. Like I would not want to be the SEC trying to argue this case.
I definitely
uphill.
I would not want to be on the SEC side arguing this case. I'd much rather be on Richard's side arguing this case.
Wow. I was going to say just one other thing. Yeah, if you have any questions, by the way, chat, get them in. We'll wrap up here in a little bit. But yeah, great article as well. Also, check out, I'll link it in the chat, Nuclear Herbs. Thank
you. I appreciate everybody read that. I really wanted to give people an idea of I didn't know how long the transcript was going to take to come out. I was surprised it came out that fast. So kudos to the court reporter who nailed it. Usually you can ask for what we in the biz call a dirty transcript. If we need it right away, we can get a dirty transcript in a day or two. It usually takes about a week for them to clean the whole thing up. I'm really surprised it came out this fast and she got it done, which is, good for her. But I wanted to, get across what, as dispassionately as I could, just the, and out of my nose, just, how things went down so people could read it. And I didn't necessarily write it for this community. I wrote it for, anybody who has an interest.
Googlers.
In
people
crypto.
Searching to want to find good information.
Yeah, and I've had a couple of attorneys. Like I know attorney Jeremy read it, thought it was a good article. There was another guy today. I'm going to kick myself for not remember him. Another attorney, somebody told him about it, and he commented on it as well on his timeline. So I'm glad to get some eyes on it. That was the purpose of it. Get some outside eyes on this thing, and like maybe. Yeah, we didn't seem to be reaching enough. We didn't have enough legal interest from outside the community, enough legal eyes on it from outside the community. And the ones that we did have, we were hoping maybe would file a brief, an amicus brief or something like that. I was trying to get reporters to. I was reaching out to reporters to try to get to cover, this hearing, and it's really disappointing when you don't get the response, because this is, as other attorneys are now noticing, the issues in this case are actually important, and I'm hoping to see that the interest in this case grows over time. If it goes forward, if it doesn't, then we're all celebrating, and sometime around New Year's, I'm going to open an additional bottle of champagne. And
hey, if it doesn't last that long, and it's going to go down history books as a great win, right? Like, I guess that's question too. Like, what happens if it does get dismissed?
If it gets dismissed, then the SEC has no jurisdiction over Richard or his products, and we just move on. Like, I'm not sure. Like, even at that point, what would stop let's say Coinbase, right? What would stop them from listing it? Listing Pulse, listing Hex, listing PulseX, or whatever. If they wanted to, there's some argument that, Coinbase is being careful now with what they list, because, the SEC is just turning around and saying, well, these are, Solana is a security, the AVAX is a security, whatever. But if, the SEC can think that this stuff's a security all they want to, but if they have no jurisdiction over it, who cares? Just like they have no jurisdiction over something that's listed on a market in China, or the Japanese stock market. They have no jurisdiction, so who gives a crap, So.
Do you think future, if it does get dismissed, future cases will cite Richard's case as, hey, you don't have jurisdiction over us either?
I guess it would depend entirely on whatever the particular facts are. Just like this, as the judge noted in this case, this was vastly different than PlexCore, because Richard did a lot of smart things. He really did. I mean, he didn't come to the United States and shill his products. He didn't specifically target U.S. investors. He didn't use U.S. dollars in any transaction. He didn't use U.S. payment methods like Visa or MasterCard that went through U.S. banks in any way, shape, or form. This was strictly done on chain with assets that, he didn't really have, he didn't have the ability to tell anybody, don't send stuff here. But if they did send it, it was crypto. It wasn't U.S. dollars. It was almost like he saw the future from way back then. Just very, I don't think people realize how, everybody knows how smart Richard is, but I don't think you realize how legally impressive it was for him to design things the way he designed them.
Big brain.
Big brain. Yeah, it was
big brain.
Really important.
One other thing before we wrap up, what do the next 60 days look like? 55 days? Like, what are you looking forward to hearing from? What's the next step in the case? If it's not dismissed, for example, what are we targeting as the next time to something interesting come up in the case?
I'm just going to sit around and bite my nails and wonder, what happens for the next, 45, 60, 75 days, something like that. I mean, I say 60 is the middle of the bell curve, but I mean, it could be earlier than that. Depending on what she finds to be critically important. If there's no jurisdiction, the ruling takes less time to write, right? Because there's only one issue and everything else is gone. She doesn't have to decide anything. But if it's a split the baby type decision, we may see her, take a little bit of more time because, that one of those, if she dismisses part of it and keeps some of it in place, then, technically some of it may be appealable right away. Some of it may not be, depending on how, I don't know what Second Circuit does with respect to interlocutory appeals. Typically they're frowned upon, which interlocutory means like the case is still being decided. It's not entirely done yet. Usually you have to wait till the case is entirely done to appeal stuff. But, we'll see. But I'm just going to sit around and with a smile on my face because I know that, Richard's team did as good as they could do. Probably, I'm not going to sweat it. It's just going to happen. Whatever happens, happens. The SEC is a long, long, long way from winning this thing, even if they survive the motion to dismiss. I guess the other option is she could always send the SEC back and say, redraft the complaint with respect to these elements if you have any more facts. But I just, I got the feeling from some of her questions that she was waiting for the SEC to say, oh yeah, we got that. We just didn't put it in there, and they didn't. So I look at it and go, why would you, if I'm a judge, why would I now give them another opportunity when they didn't tell me they had anything else to offer? You know what I mean? So we'll see.
Well, let's say that, new administration, SEC chair is replaced, totally different stance, much more friendly to crypto. Is there a world where you see the SEC just dropping the case and saying like, Judge, we're going to drop the case. We're not going to pursue these types of cases anymore. And like a whole slew of cases get dropped and, Richard's just one of them. Is that possibility?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was alluding to before as one of the possibilities. If a new SEC commissioner comes in, there's, choke point 2.0 is gone. There's a different focus on crypto. Somebody friendly to crypto like Hester gets in as the chair, and maybe they just take a look and say, what's advancing the SEC's mission here and what's not. And if it's not advancing the mission, maybe it's time to get rid of it. If it's advancing the SEC's mission, fine. Maybe they keep it. But I think that, this whole, across the board, everything's a secure, every digital asset's a security, screw everybody. Everything's, we can sue people and get money and force them to settle with us. It's not the right strategy. And I think everybody knows that now. It's just maybe everybody but Gary knows that now. But he's updating his resume as we speak. So,
I mean, I'm not calling it right now, but I really feels like the war on crypto it's at least going to be severely
curtailed for sure. Yeah,
like, it's got to be. Like, I don't see a future with new administration where it's like the same or worse. It's got to be either over or very, very targeted at stuff that actually isn't harming investors and going after, legitimate, organizations or otherwise that are harming investors, which, you could argue that's what he's supposed to do.
There's enough low-hanging fruit in the scammer world of crypto that you can go after that and protect investors without harming the good actors in the space. I'm not personally, I'm not a big fan of Coinbase, but I think that they're being unfairly treated by the SEC right now. I don't think Kraken's being treated fairly by the SEC right now. I am still, to be honest with you, surprised that the SEC decided to appeal the Ripple ruling because, appellate courts, they look to uphold trial courts, not to overturn trial courts. So if there's a legitimate legal basis for their ruling, they tend to get upheld. I mean, it's not the Court of Appeals job to overturn stuff. They kind of go in as a minus 100 favorite. If you're the trial judge that has an opinion that that gets up on the Court of Appeals. So I think it was not very bright of the SEC to make the decision to appeal that ruling, because if the Second Circuit upholds it in whole or in part, it's kind of devastating for the SEC's current regime or current methodology, regulation by enforcement, in the Second Circuit, which is it's their preferred circuit to file these things in. So, not the best plan, I don't think. And I'll say this to close that line of thought out is, you can always file a notice of appeal and then not file a brief. So I don't know if they're doing this to see, to extend the timeline, but the brief should probably be due sometime in December timeframe, maybe, or January. I don't know if it's officially come out the deadlines yet, but I think it should be probably December timeframe. But they could always just not file it and let it die, which I think may be the smarter move in this case. But what do I know?
Gotcha. No, excellent stuff. Nuclear herbs, everyone. Sorry I can't get to all the questions. We got to wrap up now. If you have any more, feel free to @nuclear herbs on Twitter, and me as well, as far as that goes. If you want to follow up on anything on the discussion, and what are you going to take us out on? What's good? What are you looking forward to? I'm
bullish. I'm happy. I love this community. I think it was just a phenomenal thing that we did, getting together and showing our support. I'm not sure we could have made a better statement to the courts. And just thank you for everybody who showed up and everybody who showed up to the PulseChain tour the next day, so that we could all hang out and talk about this even further. And I guess the next event I guess I'm going to be at is the PulseChain tour event in March in Vegas. So I'll see everybody there, and hopefully this case is long gone. I mean, that would be our best case scenario, and then we're all just talking about good shit. And so if you want to join us, and do you mind if I shill this real quick? If you want to go to the March event, you can always use my code, which is nuke the SEC, which I still think is funny. So feel free to sign up under that code. You get, I think you get some. I don't know if it's 10 or 20% off or whatever it is, but Whatever it is, it's less than full price. PulseChainTour.com, yeah. I'm looking forward to going to Vegas. I had a fantastic time meeting people there last time. It's where I met you, right?
That's right. That's right. I hope to meet you there again as well.
I'd love to see you there. Yeah.
And the meetups. Thank you. Meetups may come with debuting a new shirt. Let's see. Hex.com winning since 2019. Boom.
Outstanding.
So fifth birthday preview of the t-shirt. If you're at the local Hex meetups or future meetups, they may be available. Kind of a sneak peek there. We may have
another personal thank you to the PulseChain Foundation who went out and got the transcript. I know that I think Will from DGen Roundtable was going to buy it, but they beat him to it, and so thanks very much for spending your money on that. It was very useful, and hopefully it gives us all something to read and talk about for a while.
Hexco, give us your people with energy, give your people with passion, your smartest, your brightest, your people trotting for true DeFi, and hopefully we're able to make the world, just a little, make every part of the world a little bit better in certain ways. I think a lot of people are really passionate about doing that, and that's
absolutely
Hexco's vehicle for that. It can be.
Yep.
All right, cool. Everyone, that's all we got for you today. Nuclear Herbs, everyone, give a couple claps there.
Thank you to everybody who showed up and listened today. I appreciate it.
Yep. Everyone, that's all we got for you today. Scivive and 5555. We are out.
Awesome.